is Barbara Rose Alietti. I'm the Associate Dean of Communications and External Relations at the Lubin School of Business. It's my pleasure to welcome you this afternoon to our Executive in Residence lecture. One of the key strengths of the Lubin School is to give students practical business knowledge and experience. And we believe that the Executives in Residence program is a great opportunity for our students to gain contemporary business insights from some of the top leaders in the business world. Today we have a very special guest with us. Nick Donofrio is a 44-year IBM veteran who led IBM's technology and innovation strategies from 1997 until his recent retirement. Mr. Donofrio's most recent responsibilities included IBM research, governmental programs, technical support and quality, corporate community relations, as well as environmental health and product safety. Also reporting to Mr. Donofrio were the senior executives responsible for IBM's enterprise on-demand transformation. In 2008, IBM Chairman Sam Palmisano elected Nick IBM Fellow, the company's highest technical honor. And as the dean said at lunch, this is probably the highest thing next to being his hope. Mr. Donofrio joined IBM as a college co-op student. Never underestimate those co-op experiences you get here at Pace. In 1964, and worked on the memory technology for the legendary IBM System 360 mainframe computing system. After being hired full-time at IBM in 1967, he spent the early part of his career in integrated circuits and chip development as a designer of logic and memory chips. He held numerous technical management positions and later executive positions in several of IBM's product divisions. He has led many of IBM's major development and manufacturing teams, from semiconductor and storage technologies to microprocessors and personal computers, to IBM's entire family of servers. He is focused sharply on advancing education, employment, and career opportunities for underrepresented minorities and women. He served for many years on the board of directors for the National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering, and was its board chair from 1967 through 2002. He also served for several years on the board of directors for Inroads, a nonprofit organization focused on training and development of talented minority youth for professional careers in business and industry. He presently is co-chair of the New York Hall of Science. In 2005, Mr. Donofrio was appointed by the U.S. Department of Education to serve on the Commission for the Future of Higher Education, a 20-member delegation of business and university leaders charged with developing a new national strategy for post-secondary education that will meet the needs of America's diverse population and also address the economic and workforce needs of the country's future. He is the holder of 7 technology patents and is a member of numerous technical and science honor societies. He is a fellow of the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, a fellow of the UK-based Royal Academy of Engineering, a member of the US-based National Academy of Engineering, a member of the Board of Directors for the Bank of New York Mellon, a member of the Republic of China's Advisory Board of Science and Technology, and is a member of the Board of Trustees at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Mr. Donofrio received an honorary degree from Pace University in May 2009, I'm happy to say. We're delighted to have him here with us today to speak about creating real and lasting value in the 21st century. So without further delay, please help me welcome Nick Donofrio.
Well, that's a wonderful introduction. Thank you, almost the way I wrote it. So sincerely appreciated. It's very good to be with you all this afternoon, and I thought the way we would spend our time is I'm going to give you some comments for perhaps the first 40 or so, 45 minutes, and then we'll leave sufficient time for you to ask me some questions, okay? Because when I come to an institution such as yours, I always like to learn as well as teach, so I really cherish the opportunity to hear what's on your mind. I want to add one more bona fide to that wonderful introduction, and I only want to do this because I want to make sure you understand that the thing that's most important right now in this country, if not the world, job growth, is also very important to me. So a few weeks ago, I signed on as a senior fellow for the Kauffman Foundation. Kaufman Foundation donates or dedicates all of its efforts to entrepreneurialism, to creating new jobs in this country. Doing Marion Kaufman, Marion Labs, if you remember Marion Labs, famous drug company, bought by a bigger drug company many years ago. He left $2 billion when he passed away into the Kaufman Foundation. So they spend that money. They spend about $150 million a year trying to figure out how to stimulate new jobs in the United States. Most of those new jobs, by the way, are small and medium business jobs. So that's where my heart is right now, trying to solve that conundrum for our country. And then when I get it figured out in the United States, I'll do it for the rest of the world. Change. I want you to keep in mind that word change as we go through these next several minutes. Your capacity for change. What is it? Do you like it? Do you fight it? Do you endorse it? Do you embrace it? Do you lead it? Do you detest it? Change. It's terribly important for you to appreciate the fact that everything about this world has changed and will continue to change, and fundamentally, there is very little you can do about it. So if you don't like it, it's going to change anyway, and it becomes a real problem for you. Change is so incredibly critical. Now, a lot of that change in our lifetimes has been driven by technology. There's no doubt about it. In fact, in our lifetimes, technology was often the opportunity. Not only did it drive the change, but it became the business opportunity. It literally became the innovation. I'm here to tell you it's no longer that way. That innovation in the 21st century is not the way it was in the 20th century. I actually had it easier than you'll have it. Because I lived most of my life in the 20th century, and I was responsible in some piece for all of that technology explosion. I'm a techno geek, I admit it, and I'm proud of it. I am responsible for a lot of what's going on from a technological perspective. And I know very well that we pushed a lot of things on a lot of people that didn't need to be pushed. That's the way we made a living. Continuously convincing you that everything we had given you last year has been totally obsoleted this year. And you got to have one of these. Because no person in their right mind would want to be without one because everybody else has one. So, you know, if it's faster and better, you got to have it too. You know, if you didn't know what 1,000,000 pixels is, you're going to love 4,000,000 pixels. You know, if you didn't know what a gigabyte is, you're gonna love, you know, 100 gigabytes. If you didn't know what, you know, a gigahertz were, you were going to love 10 gigahertz. That's technology working. You get the picture? It's going to continue to work that way. It's going to continue to push. The question is, where's the value? Where is the value? In the 20th century, a lot of times, that was the value. The fact that you could do that, the fact that you could make it faster, bigger, you know, all of that stuff, you could make it fancier, that was enough. So the invention, I like to say, or the creation, or the discovery was the innovation. You understand that? The invention, the creation, or the discovery had sufficient value that it was the innovation. Now, I studied innovation. I don't want you to think I'm just up here as a disgruntled techno geek, you know, who can't invent anything or create anything or discover anything anymore, but I actually went off and studied innovation. We studied it for this country. We studied it with, you know, 45 other companies for the Council on Competitiveness. We did an incredibly seminal piece of work in 2002 called the National Innovation Initiative for this country. We gave it to this country. Eventually, the Bush administration endorsed it, accepted it, and it became the foundation for the America Competes Act. Something he signed into legislation before he left. And something given the quirk of the way the world works, President Obama has ended up funding as part of the Recovery Act in the United States. So we understand what real innovation is. We understand it in this country, and then I took that same piece of work to 15 other countries around the world to help them figure out what real innovation is as well. Let me make it simple for you. Here's what real innovation is. Real innovation is the value that is unlocked when you intersect the problem, the market opportunity, with your knowledge, your products, your goods, your services, your technology, in a way that allows you to unlock the hidden value. And that hidden value can be business value. It could also be societal value. It could be educational value. It could be governmental value. So innovation in the 21st century, it's such an incredibly liberating thought. It's a thought that literally says all of us have the chance to be innovators, while not all of us, understandably so, have a chance to be an inventor, a creator, or a discoverer. That's just not on the deck for all of us. But yes, we could all be innovators, because a lot of times we find out that this value shows up in strange places. It's not always in your product or your service. Sometimes the value is in your process. Sometimes the value is in your model. Sometimes the value is in your system. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, almost everybody exists in the innovative model, or the innovation model. It's very liberating. It's very freeing. When you think about the fact that you all have a chance at making a huge difference. Huge difference. And that's what the world needs more of right now. More innovative thinkers who don't have to start with the periodic table. You can. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't do technical work. Why would I ever suggest that's not true? I'm not suggesting you shouldn't invent. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't create or discover. Of course you need to do all of that, but if that's all you do, that may not be innovation. So you remember, you're here in college, you remember those famous words from somebody. They used to say, what's the necessary and sufficient condition for success? The necessary and sufficient condition for success is no longer technology. It's no longer invention. It's no longer creation or discovery. It's just no longer that, or any longer that. That simple. Understand that? Okay. I'm not saying it's not important, but by itself it won't get the job done. It might get the job done every now and then, random events occur on a regular basis. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for sustainable and lasting real value. Sustainable and lasting. That's what's going to move this country along. That's what's going to move every country along. That's what moves the globe along. After all, aren't we all here for the same thing? I mean, aren't we all here working hard to raise our standard of living? Is anybody here working to lower their standard of living? Anybody think that's a good idea? Okay. So, in order to do that, change. Change. You have to change the way you think of things. So be careful when people say innovation and mean invention. Be careful when people say innovation and mean technology. Be careful when people say innovation and mean creation or discovery. That's probably not going to get the job done. Okay? That's what comes out of that NII work, that National Innovation Initiative. That's what we call it for short. You can get that report, by the way. You can download it off of the Council on Competitiveness's website for nothing. You can get that report, and like I said, we have duplicated that work over and over again, and it is constantly validating itself. It says, and fundamentally it says, we need to change the way we educate people. We need to change the way we support and endorse and nurture and enable new ideas, in our country. We need to change the rules and regulations of government in our country. We need to measure things differently. Think about measurements, metrics, you must, right? Somebody must teach you a course in how do you measure things. We measure everything with what system right now? A system we created in the 19th century. We use fundamentally the industrial age model to measure the efficiency of our economy or productivity. And yet that's not where most of the value is here in the 21st century. It's not in the thing that we're very capable of measuring. Where is most of that value? Now let's stick for a second here with the economy. Let's stick with business value. Okay? We can come back to societal value, we can come back to educational value, we can come back to governmental value, but since this is the Lubin School of Business, let's talk about where is the business value? Well, it's different. Everything's exploding, everything's changing. Right, by the way, if you think I'm kidding you about changing, can you remember just a few statistics? You'll be very impressive tonight at the cocktail party you're going to go to. Just remember this. Every year, we make 1 billion transistors for every person, for every man, woman, and child on the planet. 1 billion transistors. That's not making a change. We actually make more transistors than we harvest grains of rice every year. We've instrumented everything. And the things that we haven't instrumented, we're going to instrument them. So, and not just me, I mean, everybody's going to. Everything is fundamentally instrumented. What are you doing with that? How are you thinking about that as opportunity to do something different? You don't have to be the instrumenter. The instrumenter actually may not be where the value is. Everything's interconnected. Now this you do know. You see this all the time. I mean, you've got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 6 cell phones, or 6 ways to interface to the internet. The internet. What a profound thing, huh? 1995. Where were you in 1995? Everybody wants to know, where were you when the Berlin Wall came down today? Where were you in 1995 when the internet came on the scene? What were you thinking? Did you predict it? Did you have it in sight? Did you understand how different the world was going to be? In what? 13 years, 14 years? Did you? Let me tell you what I said in 1998. Because I had to say something. I had to stand up in front of Wall Street and tell them what IBM was going to do about the internet. In 10 years, there will be 1 million businesses. There will be 1 billion people. And there will be 1 trillion devices connected to the net. I said that in 1998. With no logic, with no rationale, with no supporting data to say it. Just felt right. It felt like it made sense. After all, I'm an engineer. Why wouldn't that make sense? And by the way, it's alliteration. 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, you know, so it's a sound bite, you know, and most Wall Street people like sound bites. That's what they tend to remember. How did I do? I took a checkpoint in 2008, almost just before I left IBM. 1 million businesses? Millions of businesses. Millions of businesses. 1 billion people? 2 billion people. 1 trillion. Now here it gets tricky. That's a very big number. It's a huge number. 1 trillion. There are not 1 trillion devices connected to the net. There's about 1/4 of a trillion. But in the next couple of years, there'll be several trillion devices. Your car, I mean, your house, I mean, things that you don't even imagine are constantly being, or do imagine, because you probably are doing it, connected to the web. So not only are we fundamentally instrumented, we're fundamentally interconnected. So I'm telling you, the path for change is set. It's just the world is different. The world's going to be even more different, and it's going to continue to accelerate. So get comfortable. Get comfortable with the fact that there's millions of opportunities out there for you to do something different. And you don't have to be the instrumenter. You don't have to be the interconnector. You can simply be the process person. You can be the systems person. You can be the model-driven person. I will tell you, if you heard what I said, you have to start with the problem. Always start with the problem. Don't start with the answer. The biggest mistakes, the mistakes we made in the 20th century were the mistakes of someone who had all the answers. If you wanted a little bit of that, you're going to want a lot of that. And if you're going to want a lot of that, you're going to want even more of that. And I'm capable of giving it to you. That's not where the value is. So where is the value? Look, you live in a network world. Let's talk about one very untapped resource: social networking. I'm sure you're familiar with the phenomena. I'm sure you Twitter. Somebody's Twittering right now, I'm sure. You're Facebooking, you're MySpacing, you're YourSpacing, you're LinkedIn, you're on LinkedIn. You're everything. You're everything. Now, yeah, you could have been the person that did all of that, and you say, man, you know, that person doesn't necessarily have to be a technical person to have done that, to take advantage of social networking. Is that really all there is to social networking? Is all that stuff? No. No. It's not all that stuff. Because the only way you make money through social networking is how? How do you make money in social networking? Anybody? Advertising. How big a piece of the spending pie is advertising when you look at the GDP of a country? It's minuscule. So is that all you're going to do? Who monetizes? Who steps back and says, okay, this is all going on? How do I do something different here? How do I actually make money? Make real money, serious money with social networking? Lots of people. Lots of people have figured out exactly how to do that. One example, Topcodercom. Have you heard of this website? Go there, Topcodercom. This guy has a little company in Connecticut, 50 people in his company. It's a software company. He writes software for people. He has 200,000 associates. 200,000 people are capable of working for him on any given day. He submits a bid, he wins the bid, he wins the business. He has a process, an innovative process that takes that code. Let's say he has to write 10,000 lines of code. Let's say he has to do it for the NSA. He chops it up into small pieces. And then he pushes it through his process, and then he lets you bid on it in front of all of us. And then we all say either good or bad things about you. You know, you did a lousy job the last time. You know, we're crazy if we give you that, 100 lines of code to write this time, because, we still can't make the last stuff that you put together work. Is that true? Is that how bad you are? Maybe that's not the case for him. But that's what the community does, so it's very community-driven. It's a totally socially networked phenomena. You know what he actually did? He actually took the phenomena of MMOGs, massively multiplayer online games, actually took that phenomena and he harnessed it to literally build this company. This company, which he started with his own 10,000 bucks. This company, which is several tens of millions of dollars worth of revenue already. This company, by the way, where if you were any good, so you should keep practicing, you could be one of the people who says, and I made $1 million last year, twiddling bits for Topcoder.com. Now, how did that work? How did he come up with this idea? He saw everything everybody else saw. He's taken everything that everybody else can take. He's put it together in a unique and facile way with his process. He happens to be a semiconductor or a software developer, by the way. That's what he did before he went to this. Came up with this entrepreneurial idea. I mean, I give Jack Hughes is the CEO and founder of Topcoder.com. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal what he has been able to do. Harness your energy. Because you have a day job. You only go to Topcoder.com at night. You're only there to make a little, well actually maybe you're not even there to make money. You're only there because instead of doing an MMOG or instead of doing Twittering or something else, you're going to take a crack at winning the quest of writing the next 100 lines of code. Are you getting the picture? You understanding what I'm trying to say? Right in front of you. Those innovative things that are most powerful are the things that you say, oh, that stupid. I mean, I had that idea. You can make money with that idea. Push things together that haven't been pushed together. Push things together that don't go together. Push them together. Push the walls out and away, or else all you're going to end up doing is rearranging the furniture inside the room. And that, you run out of gas in a very short period of time. You want to break down those walls. You want to be moving things out, up, sideways, and downward. If you want a book, a reference book to read, to understand what I'm talking about when I talk about this kind of innovation, The Medici Effect. The Medici Effect by Franz Johansson. The Medicis, do you know who they are? Very famous Florentine family, 12th, 13th century, in that era. They were the predecessors of the Industrial Revolution. These were the people, very wealthy, very powerful. Your Pope comment, I think they had 4 or 5 popes in their family, so they were very powerful in Italy. Very powerful. They brought all kinds of artisans together in Florence that were never brought to Florence. They brought things together that weren't supposed to be brought together. They pushed things together just the way I'm suggesting to you to look for where that innovative opportunity is. The Medici Effect by Franz Johansson. And it happens anywhere. You can do it in fashion, you can do it in foods, you can do it in music, you can do it in movies, you can do it in industry, you can do it everywhere and anywhere. Things that don't go together, push them together. I mean, one of the things that I hope Pace University doesn't do is doesn't silo itself so deeply, that you can't, go across the disciplines. And businesses that do that find themselves in trouble. As much as IBM went through a near-death experience as it left the late 80s and early 90s and moved forward, we've continued to transform ourselves by breaking those silos down, because they end up limiting your innovation capability. They end up keeping you from pushing things together. That's innovation, and that's the beginning of another thought. A thought that says, how capable are we? I mean, can we do this? Do we actually have the skills to be innovative? How are we being educated? Do we actually understand what's required to be an innovator? I would suggest to you, we don't, sadly. We have the wrong model. Here, too, we use a model from the 19th century to educate ourselves. This is a little dangerous because here I'm being invited by Pace University, an institution of higher education, and then I'm about to indict them. But I've indicted, actually, everyone, not just Pace University. In my introduction, you heard I spent a year as a commissioner for Secretary Spellings, Secretary of Education, on the future of higher education in the United States. It's worrisome. It's problematic for a number of reasons. But the one I worry the most about is the fact that the way you were educated, for the most part, is the same way I was educated. I mean, I'm kind of ancient history. I get out of RPI in 1967 with a double E degree. A double E degree that really wanted to be a computer science degree, but they didn't have computer science then because they were still trying to figure out whether or not there was going to be computers. And whether or not you actually had to teach somebody computers. You see, when I went to school, it wasn't computers, it was slide rules and calculators. And they're saying to themselves, well, we didn't have a slide rule engineer. We didn't have a calculator engineer. Why do we need a computer engineer? Won't this pass too? That's the way they thought, by the way. I'm not so far wrong. And of course, they were wrong. And most of the times they are wrong. And most of the times they're wrong because they don't like to change. They're very comfortable doing what they're doing. I mean, you're like, hey, if we're not going to do that anymore, what do I do? I mean, do I have to go back and get re-educated? No, I'm too old for that. So we're going to stay right here. We're going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing. That's wrong. Because you know what that does? That makes you educated, shaped like the letter I. Now that That's not a bad letter. But look at it. It's what? It's deep and narrow. I. You're deep and narrow. You look like a silo. You're kind of correct by construction. You're supposed to come out and behave that way, because that's the way we educated you. What are you? I had some students at lunch, and of course they all told me, proudly who they were. And who they were was based on what they're studying. That may not be a good thing to be. That may not be a good way to describe yourself at all. What if we don't need that anymore? What are you going to do about that? What if that's not where the real opportunity is? What are you going to do about that? What do I want? I want students who are shaped more like the letter T. You know the letter T? So you've got some depth to you. You've got some bona fides. You know how to solve problems. You're very facile at change. You're very capable of ingesting a lot of perhaps strange, not normal, not routine input. You're very capable of merging things together and synthesizing things that other people can't. You can see it where other people can't. And you know, as a T-shaped person, you know very well that you've got to do something about yourself, that you can't stay where you are. T-shaped people have that edginess. T-shaped people are actually Renaissance kind of people. They know a lot about a lot of things, but they know something very, very deep about one thing. And they're willing to swap that out. They're willing to change what that thing is. I had to do that at IBM. Over and over again. I mean, how do you think you're there for 44 years? You're not there for 44 years just because you say, I want to stay here. I mean, anywhere along the way in the last 20 years, they say, hey, you, hit the deck. You're out. You're off. We don't need you anymore. I used to go home back in the late 80s, early 90s, tell my wife, let's not unpack the boxes. We may not be staying here. The next person to go may be me in the IBM company. So you stay because you're given opportunities to make a difference. You stay because you find a way to make a difference. You find a way to change yourself. You find a way to tee yourself up. You find a way to kind of replace your core. Did you hear my introduction? I'm an electrical engineer. I'm a circuit and a chip designer. I didn't even start out that way. I started out as a circuit designer of vacuum tube circuits. You have no idea what a vacuum tube is. You're way too young. I mean, vacuum tubes is the way those computers were made at one time. These things that glowed, they burned out all the time, they dissipated huge. You talk about a carbon footprint, my God. It was a big, because the filaments were carbon too, so it was a huge carbon footprint. By the time I show up at IBM, that's not what they're doing. We don't need that anymore. What do you need? We need people, not even transistors, which I knew something about. We need people who can do integrated circuits. What's an integrated circuit? Well, we're going to pull this crap together on one little piece of silicon, and we're going to save a lot of time, effort. It's going to be productive. It's going to go fast. Can you do that? Sure. Did I know that I could do that? No. I had no clue. I knew I know how to solve problems, and you know what else I knew? I knew what I didn't know. And I knew what to do about what I didn't know. And that's what you have to learn. Because you're going to be judged in the future more based on what you do about what you don't know, as opposed to what you know. Because what you know is so small compared to a world that's constantly changing. So what do you do about what you don't know? Because what you don't know is more important than what you know. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, T-shaped people. T-shaped people do that more easily. They're more comfortable moving. Now, you notice I didn't leave being an electrical engineer and become a neurosurgeon. I didn't leave being an electrical engineer and become a biogeneticist. And I stayed close to my roots. But they had to be completely transplanted and moved constantly. Maybe 12, 15, 16 times, maybe 20 times in my career, my jobs changed. Physically, my family and I moved 12 times. 12 times. Half of the time without them, half of the time with them in the IBM company. T-shaped people. That's what we want more of in this world. So when you think about opportunities that you have to broaden yourself, to kind of move your competency, do it. Do it. If you don't, you're going to be left standing. You're going to be left standing, and you may be the last person left standing where you are. In an industry, in a skill that doesn't matter. You know, that almost happened to IBM. You remember that. I'm sure you've studied the IBM case, or you will study the IBM case. Late 80s, early 90s. What a clarifying moment for all of us. A near-death experience. You talk about wanting to change. After a near-death experience, everybody wants to change. Nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to be in. Nobody wants to be out. How fast can you change? Now, is that the only reason people change? Is because you're having a near-death experience? It can't be. That's a very unpleasant way to change. You've got to think about changing all the time on your own before you get to that precipice, before you get to a point of disaster. You've got to move yourself in every way, shape, or manner, because it's moving, whether you want it to move or not. The world is changing, whether you want it to move or not. And even if you don't like my technology arguments, trust me, there are people just like you listening to somebody just like me somewhere else in the world right now who are going to change before you are. You may not be happy, totally satisfied with your position in life. I guarantee you, there are 2 billion people on this planet who are worse off than you are. And they have no intention of staying where they are. So they're coming after you. They're coming after your job. They're coming after your opportunity. Maybe they're in China. Maybe they're in India. Maybe they're in Africa. Maybe they're in Latin America. 2 to 2.5 billion people live at the base of the pyramid. Do you know what that is? You subsist on $2 a day or less. The base of the pyramid. We're a planet of 6 billion people, for goodness sakes, and we leave 2.5 billion at the base. We're going to add 3 billion more people between now and 2050 to this planet. 3 billion more people. 9 billion people. You don't think somebody's going to want what you've got? You don't think somebody is going to want your standard of living? You don't think they're hungry, they have less to lose, less to risk, and they're going to move faster? Think again. Think again, my friends. And they are changing at an incredibly rapid rate. It can't be fast enough for them. You saw Slumdog Millionaire? It's that way and worse in India. That was probably doing it a kindness. You want to stay there? Do you want to live in that waller? No way. Change. It's happening everywhere, whether you like technology or not. We are living in a world that's totally integrated. Our economies are integrated. Our technologies are integrated. And you're going to find, sooner than later, our societies are integrated as well. Things are going to move faster than you've ever thought. If you could just remember that. Just remember that however fast you think you're changing, it's not fast enough. Because there's somebody else who's hungrier than you are. There's somebody else who actually does have the eye of the tiger. And you don't. You don't. I've said that all the time to this country. Our people are more complacent. Our people are more satisfied. They're more gratiated. They're more comfortable than what... I just came back from China. I was there for a week. I was in Singapore earlier. I was in Brazil earlier this year. I'm telling you, they're moving fast. They're ramping up. They're going to be at warp speed before you even understand how they came upon you. So in the end, let me summarize. It's all about change. Technology is going to force the change. And in some ways, technology has forced this irreversible movement now of other societies starting to change because of the way we've connected ourselves together. Innovation is different. Innovation is all about creating value. I'm not suggesting to you that we don't want products, that we don't need services. I'm not suggesting that all the values and processes or models or systems, I'm not suggesting that at all. We need all of those things. We need, but you say to yourself, so where am I going to focus? Where am I going to go to work? Where are the jobs of the future? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Where are the jobs of the future? Where are they? I'll give you some answers. You won't like these answers, but I'm going to give them to you anyway. It's a simple set. First off, agriculture. Agriculture. Let me give you a very crisp example here in the United States. 1,800 percentage of the population in the United States that worked in agriculture. I guess? 1,800 percentage of the population in the United States that worked in agriculture. 95% is the answer. 95%. 2009, what's the percentage of the population in the United States that works in agriculture? 1% at the end of this year. 1%. By the way, you can go get OECD numbers. This is the organization that compares economic sectors across the globe. Go get the OECD numbers. In 2006, there were more people working in services for the first time ever than in agriculture. In the globe. In the globe. Agriculture is a shrinking industry. From a job perspective, from a GDP perspective. I'm not saying agriculture is not important. You like to eat, right? I like to eat. We want to stay alive. Nobody's saying food's bad. We produce the food for the world with the fewest number of people. You want to sign up to be a farmer? I mean, sure, you can be an organic farmer. I mean, maybe you could find a niche business there. I'm not suggesting you couldn't do that. But are we going to take those 3 billion people that come onto this planet between now and 2050 and we say, you're going to be farmers? No. No. We got to feed them. The way you're going to feed them is you're going to be more productive. Got that picture? Here's another one. This one will really resonate with you. Draw this picture. Piece of paper, cut it in half. Services, products. Got it? Services, products. Same piece of paper, cut it in half this way. Material, information. Okay. With this piece of paper, let's look at where the real jobs are. And this work has been done by a gentleman out Berkeley, Business School at Berkeley, Uday Karmakar. He's plotted this over a number of years. What's happening to the U.S. economy with respect to services versus products? Got a guess? How much of the U.S. economy is services driven? Anybody? How much? Good number. 80%. 80% of the U.S. economy is services driven. How about this way? Information versus material. A guess? Anybody? U.S. economy. 60%. 60% information, 80% services. What's happening to this quadrant? This is the product material quadrant. What's happening to it? Is it expanding? You want to go work in there? Are we going to put the next 3 billion people in there? By the way, he's doing this work for other countries now, besides the United States. I'm not saying we don't need products. I'm not saying there's nothing valuable from a material perspective. We need material things. Everybody, I got to be clothed. You got to be clothed. I need a car. You need a car. We got to sit on something. You know, we got to be housed. But again, productivity.